My name's Anthony Altier, and I'm Program Lead for the Medical Device Governance Program at the Clinical Excellence Commission. And it is a great pleasure to welcome you to this second of our webinar series today. And today what we're going to be doing is touching on point of care manufacturing. So we're going to be looking at the Therapeutic Goods Administration, at the TGA's medical device reforms as they relate to point of care manufacturing of personalised medical devices, or PMDs as they're referred to. So PMDs are devices that are uniquely crafted for a specific individual. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide you with an oversight of the PMD regulations. But we're certainly not going to be able to cover all aspects or all areas of interest in terms of point of care manufacturing. This is a really broad and depth content that we're trying to condense for you today. So the TGA does have reference documents and materials available on their website, which explores PMDs in depth, and they're a great resource that you can also send questions or comments to the team via our email address, which we've just put in the chat there for you. So I'd like to start today by acknowledging the country that I'm speaking from you on today. I'm on Birpai land today in Port Macquarie, and I have colleagues today who will be speaking to us from Gomeragal land at One Reserve Road. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal people who are joining us here today. I also want to acknowledge the work that's gone into the program so far, not just by clinicians, but by consumers as well, and by people that have put all their experiences and perspectives into the reform developments as they stand today. So their contribution, we know, is vital to enabling decision-making for health system change. And the voices of people with living experiences are powerful. Their contribution is vital to the work of continuously improving safety and quality in our health system. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the nitty-gritty today. The webinar today is going to be about 35 to 40 minutes long. It is being recorded for future access for you to share with your teams and your networks, and your audio and videos have been disabled. The chat feature again though is live, so if you have any questions, please put any questions, thoughts or comments directly into that chat feature, or again email them directly to us at the CEC. Now there are a lot of technical aspects to the webinar today in nature and content. We'll do our best to explain this in a way that it is relatable and that we can provide some relatable examples for. So please bear with us. And again, please post any questions, any thoughts, any comments that you have at any time during or after the session. There is one particular resource on our website that I'd like to draw your attention to. So we've now added a couple of new links there for definitions and for acronyms that relate to medical device governance. So please keep this in mind if you're unsure of any of the terms that we're using throughout this session or in your work involving medical device reforms. On the same page, again, you'll also find other resources, including fact sheets for clinicians and information for consumers that we've developed. And again, there are links that will take you to TGA resources. What you're seeing on your screen there now are the topics that we'll be covering in today's session. So what we'll be going to giving you an overview of are personalised medical devices, the new personalised medical device framework that's been issued by the TGA, and that includes the following devices: custom-made medical devices, adaptable medical devices, and patient-matched medical devices, which all come under that umbrella of PMDs. We'll also have a discussion about the notification requirements for the TGA, for the Therapeutic Goods Administration. And this is important. A key message of today's session is that custom-made devices that now meet the definition of a patient-matched device have to be notified to the TGA prior to the 1st of November of this year. And this will allow you a transition period, to continue to manufacture and supply those devices through to 2029. And it's not until 2029 that we'll see the point of care and the personalised medical device regulations embedded by the TGA. So they're the topics we'll be covering today. Now I want to introduce you to our team. This is the CEC's Medical Device Governance Program team who will be co-presenting with me today. So I've got my project officers online with Dr. Ambika Murthy, Michael Marquet, and Tanya Arnott. I really also want to extend my gratitude and acknowledgements to both Ziolin Advais, our Business Support Officer, and to Danielle Murphy, our Change Manager and Systems Integration Lead, who have been integral in getting this webinar series off the ground rather. So the first webinar that we held last month in March, we gave you a general overview of the TGA medical devices reforms and what that meant for New South Wales Health. So what we're going to do in today's webinar and in upcoming webinars is a deeper dive into those reforms, and today introducing you to the world of point of care manufacturing and personalised medical devices. Some of you are already going to be working with personalised medical devices. Some of you will already have an understanding of the requirements under the new regulations and reforms. And I also appreciate for others of you online, this topic is going to be completely new. So what I'd like to do to start the session today is introduce you to Ambika and ask Ambika if she can give us a rundown of what a personalised medical device is. So Ambika, I'll hand over to you now, please.
Thanks, Anthony, and good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you all joining us online. Personalized medical devices, or PMDs, are specifically designed, manufactured, assembled, modified, or adapted to cater to the unique needs of an individual patient. This can involve a collaborative, multidisciplinary effort by healthcare professionals, engineers, and scientists to develop medical devices that align with an individual's unique anatomical and physiological needs. This level of device personalization can greatly improve a patient's quality of life. The process of manufacturing medical devices, including techniques like 3D printing, is gradually moving closer to the point of care, such as at hospitals and clinics. This shift brings many benefits to both patients and authorized healthcare professionals. For patients, this can improve comfort, convenience, or can be life-saving, as it allows healthcare staff to offer better treatment alternatives. Also, it's likely to reduce the overall cost of healthcare services. As you can see on the screen, personalized medical devices, or PMD, is the overarching umbrella term that comprises custom-made, adaptable, and patient-matched devices. These terms I have just used may be familiar to some engineers and technical staff, but might be less familiar to others. However, in the following slides, we will explain each of these terms in detail and provide some relatable examples.
Thanks for that overview, Ambika. Over the past decade, we've witnessed some really rapid novel advancements and technological improvements, including innovations like 3D printing. Notably, devices are now tailored to meet the unique needs of specific individuals. And we're talking about devices such as orthopedic appliances. So in essence, personalized medical devices, PMDs, represent targeted manufacturing for the individual patients. And this is a really, truly novel and exciting approach to be taking. During our previous webinar, we explored how the TGA reforms affect healthcare professionals and consumers. So, Ambika, can you share the recent changes to the PMD framework with us, please?
Sure. I would like to draw everyone's attention to the screen. On the left of the slide, you see how the regulatory situation was before February 25, 2021. Now, if you shift your gaze on the right side of the slide, you can see the changes that have been in effect since February 25, 2021, with the new regulatory framework. The main change centers around custom-made medical devices. The scope of what qualifies as a custom-made device has been narrowed down, and a new concept called patient-matched device emerges. Let's delve into the specifics. Despite the changes, there will still be a clear definition for custom-made devices. Medical devices that meet this definition will remain exempt from the requirement to be included in the Australian Register of Therapeutic Goods, or ARTG, before manufacture or supply. I will explain in detail about what exemption means in the next couple of slides. But here are the devices that require ARTG inclusion. Firstly, a patient-matched device, and then an adaptable device, which is a new definition for an existing concept. However, some adaptable devices might have context-dependent exemption to reduce the burden on healthcare staff. And this will be discussed in our next slides.
Thanks, Ambika. So as previously stated, some of the requirements for personalised medical device regulations actually came into effect in 2021. But the TGA continuing to actually develop some of the regulations surrounding this, and these won't be embedded until 2029. So, Ambika, can you tell us a little bit about what led the TGA to refine the PMD regulatory framework in 2021?
Before I do, I would like to reiterate that PMD may mean that if a patient needed a hip replacement or an artificial limb, healthcare staff could use patient scans to view the patient's existing anatomy and use these images to manufacture a patient-matched or custom-made prosthetic. Under the previous regulations, these devices were exempt from inclusion in the ARTG and could be supplied without TGA oversight. With the recent advances and improvements in technology at point of care, including 3D printing, new manufacturers and suppliers have entered the market, including local health districts or specialty networks. Overall, new risks have emerged with PMDs and point-of-care manufacturing, which did not exist for traditional mass-produced medical devices. This is what has led to the regulatory refinements on personalized medical devices manufacturing. Of course, it's not a local issue, it's a global one. So, to build a safer system for patients with medical devices, the TGA and many other national regulators around the world have been working hard to address the challenge of appropriately monitoring and regulating these personalized medical devices.
Thanks so much for that, Ambika. One thing that I would like to reiterate is that Ambika stated this isn't by no means a local issue. This is a global issue, and the TGA reforms are actually occurring off the back of regulatory reforms that are occurring both in the US and the EU. So some of the delays that we're seeing are actually stemming from delays at those levels. I might also add that for personalised medical devices, we need to be in a position to adopt consistent, harmonised approaches to manufacturing at the point of care, approaches that are going to offer significant benefits to our patients and ease the burden and simplify reporting requirements by healthcare workers to regulatory authorities like the TGA. So Ambika's made it clear that PMD is the umbrella term covering those three concepts of point of care manufacturing. So Ambika, can you now expand a bit more on each of those manufacturing models for us that fall under that PMD umbrella? I might ask you to start with custom-made medical devices, if you don't mind.
Sure. Unlike a mass-produced device that is rolled off in large quantities, custom-made medical devices are manufactured as a one-off. Whether it's a specialized prosthetic leg or a dental implant, custom-made medical devices cater to the unique anatomy and functional demands of that particular individual. It's designed for those outside of the specific design envelope. This term means a typical range of sizes and shapes for medical devices. A simple analogy is the standard adult shoe sizes you find in a store, let's say from size 4 to 15. Maybe for an adult who is exceptionally tall with a shoe size of 18 or unusually short with a shoe size of 3. They clearly fall outside the specific design envelope. In this case, there is a need to design and manufacture a shoe specifically for this individual, as none of the shoes available in the market fit the individual. Similarly, custom-made medical devices are exceptionally rare and unique. They are produced and supplied when a patient's specific circumstances dictate that no other suitable device is available on the market for their treatment. As you can see in the circle on the right side of the screen, under the refined PMD reforms, the pool of custom-made devices is dramatically reduced within the PMD umbrella when compared to that of patient-matched devices, to an extent that it is almost non-existent. This means more regulatory oversight to enhance patient safety, which is very likely to add additional responsibilities to point-of-care staff. Custom-made devices are exempt from the formal TGA approval process. However, they are still regulated by the TGA, which I will be explaining in the next slide. Also, the point-of-care manufacturer or sponsor must notify the TGA within 2 months of the manufacture or initial supply of the custom-made medical device. This notification is to ensure transparency and accountability. Please see the link and QR code on the screen and in the chat box on how to submit a custom-made device notification to the TGA. We will also walk you through the TGA notification process towards the end of the presentation.
Ambika, I've heard you mention the terms excluded and exempt, which might be a bit confusing. In the context of the TGA reforms, can you explain what each of those concepts are? What does excluded and exempt mean?
Sure. Excluded devices are completely unregulated by the TGA. However, they must adhere to relevant industry standards and safety practices, as well as other relevant consumer laws. Some examples of excluded devices are anatomical models for educational or record-keeping purposes. These are not intended for clinical use and therefore do not impact patient health. Cosmetic finishing components for orthosis and prosthesis that contribute to aesthetics. Ear molds intended to anchor hearing aids in place to provide comfort. Dental impression trays, dental bleaches, and whiteners. On the other hand, exempt devices have reduced regulations, as in they are closely monitored by the TGA, but they have fewer rules to follow than other medical devices. For example, custom-made medical devices, as I described in the previous slide, low-volume patient-matched devices. If you manufacture and or supply less than 5 in a financial year. Patient-matched medical devices in transition period, that is up to November 1st, 2029. This only applies if you have made an application for transition from a custom-made to a patient-matched medical device that is due 1st November this year.
So what we're saying then is that an exempt medical device is still regulated by the TGA, but they're subject to reduced regulations and there is no need for a RTG application for those devices. So, Ambika, can you talk to us a little bit more about exempt devices?
In addition to what you just mentioned, here are some of the other key points regarding exempt medical devices. Firstly, manufacturers must identify and adhere to the TGA's essential principles. Essential principle is the terminology used to define the fundamental rules that guide the design and production of medical devices to ensure that the device functions safely and effectively. And we have pasted the essential principle list in the chat box. If any unexpected issues or problems arise with the device, it must be reported to the TGA by manufacturer, sponsor, or user. Any promotional material or information about the device must comply with TGA's advertising code. Manufacturers must provide details about the device's intended purpose, usage, care, and potential risks, including to that of patients. Manufacturers must submit annual reports to the TGA, summarizing their medical device activities. The TGA has the authority to inspect their manufacturing sites, example like site audits, where these medical devices are made to ensure compliance with regulations and maintain quality standards.
Fantastic. So you will note that a link has been popped into the chat there to the TGA's essential principles that Ambika was talking about. And we strongly encourage you to access this resource and make yourself familiar and aware of what the required practices and evidence might be that you need to apply. So now that we've learned a little bit about custom-made medical devices, I'd like to bring Mick into the picture. And Mick's going to walk us through another one of the concepts under the personalised medical device umbrella, and he's going to talk to us about adaptable medical devices. So, Mick, can you please provide a definition of an adaptable medical device for us and give us a couple of examples?
Yes, definitely. So adaptable medical devices are typically mass-produced. However, they can be adjusted, shaped, or assembled to fit an individual patient's unique requirements. Now, healthcare practitioners at the point of care play a crucial role in tailoring these devices to suit the patient's needs and at the same time, not altering the intended purpose of the device. Now, some of the relatable examples include, but these are not limited to, plaster-infused or thermoplastic bandages that physios might use. We've also got tooth-filling materials like composite resins. Now, other relatable examples are bone cements. We've also got addition of padding to prefabricated or pre-made splints to improve patient comfort. And as a podiatry example, adjustment of moon boots, and lastly, adjusting compression garments for lymphedema, which is commonly used in occupational therapy and rehabilitation sectors.
So, Mick, you mentioned the intended purpose of a medical device, and that shouldn't be altered with the adaptation for an individual's patient's needs. Can you talk to us a bit more about what the intended purpose means, please?
Right. So the intended purpose of a medical device could be defined by asking questions such as, firstly, what does it do? What is it used for? Who is it used on? And lastly, when should it be used? Now, for example, you've got infrared thermometers that are specifically marketed for measuring human body temperature and therefore clinical use. These are, again, different to the ones available in the market to measure temperature of cooked meat. Another example is a valve used in hyperbaric chamber to maintain pressure, precise pressure for tissue healing. Now, this looks exactly the same and has similar function as a valve used for scuba diving. A valve used for scuba diving is not classified as a medical device or regulated by the TGA, although it looks the same as hyperbaric valve because its intended purpose is, of course, not clinical.
Excellent. Thanks, Mick. So based on what you've said then, the intended purpose ensures the safe and effective use of that medical device. It's obvious then that the intended purpose of a medical device really should remain unaltered. What does it mean for healthcare staff who are assembling, who are modifying, or who are adjusting devices? What does this look like for them?
Right, so they must follow explicit instructions provided by the device's manufacturer on how to safely modify, prepare, or assemble them. Point of care healthcare staff have some responsibilities in this regard, such as context-dependent ARTG inclusion. Now, let me give you two scenarios. Let's say if devices are created from scratch using one or more non-ARTG listed materials or components, then the final product must be included in the ARTG. I'll be explaining this in a bit more detail in the next slide. And also, if you are importing a medical device from overseas, then you become a sponsor and must include the device in the ARTG. Now, on the other hand, if pre-manufactured materials or components in the ARTG are assembled, modified, or adapted without changing the intended purpose of the device, then no additional ARTG inclusion is required. Now, this means then that healthcare workers have no extra responsibilities in this situation.
So let's try and use a specific example, a really commonly used medical device, a hand splint. So Mick, in terms of hand splints, do healthcare staff need to include these in the ARTG?
Okay, so hand splints are used to support and protect broken bones and injuries such as strains, sprains, tendon ruptures, and dislocations. The hand splints you see on the left-hand side of the screen have elastics and wires that are from source like Bunnings or Spotlight. These additional components are clearly not listed in the ARTG. Now, hand splints can be crafted from generic materials to medical device grade components that are in the ARTG. Under the current PMD framework, hand splints fall under Class 1, non-sterile, non-measuring device, and need ARTG inclusion. Now, however, to reduce the burden on healthcare staff, there are some exemptions. If a pre-manufactured hand splint is modified, adapted, or assembled without changing the intended purpose of the device, it qualifies for an exemption, and therefore no ARTG is required and is an exempt medical device. However, if manufactured using one or more non-ARTG materials, this necessitates inclusion in the ARTG. Now, in this case, if a health practitioner or a healthcare facility is importing hand splints from overseas, the practitioners and clinics become the sponsor then and must include the device in the ARTG.
Thanks, Mick. That's a good snapshot of what this means for frontline workers. So I understand that if a health practitioner wants to reduce this administrative burden, then they've got to ensure essentially that all the components that they're using to make a device are listed on the ARTG. So now I'd like to move on to Tanya, and Tanya's going to introduce us to the third umbrella, or the third rather concept under the PMD umbrella, and that is patient-matched medical devices. So I'll hand over to Tanya now to talk to us about patient-matched medical devices.
Thanks, Ant. So, like custom-made and adaptable medical devices, a patient-matched medical device comes with its distinct features. So patient-matched devices are manufactured within a specific design envelope. And as you've heard previously, this means the typical ranges of sizes and shapes for medical devices. And going back to the shoe analogy, it's a standard adult shoe sizes ranging from size 4 to 15 that you'll find in a store. So a specific design envelope is used to match the anatomical, the physiological features, or address a pathological condition for a specific individual. And there's common examples include, but they're not limited to ankle-foot orthotics, elbow or knee prosthesis kits, prosthetic leg socket, also silicone bolus or 3D printed bolus, which is commonly used in radiation therapy, and retainers, aligners, and orthodontic temporary anchorage devices, which are commonly used in the dental sector. And it's important to note that if you are transitioning from a custom-made medical device to a patient-matched device, you must notify the TGA by the 1st of November 2024. And you can access the TGA notification site by the QR code or the link that's just been posted on the chat on how to submit a patient-matched medical device transition notification. And also fill in only one online notification form for each kind of medical device, rather than for each device supplied to the patient. And a kind of device means the device has the same manufacturer, the same sponsor, the same GMD code, and the same device class. And in the case you're uncertain if your device is custom made or patient matched, still notify the TGA by filling in the online notification form, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And the TGA will then assess and let you know of the next steps. And again, towards the end of the session, we'll just take you through the TGA notification process.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for that. It's good to know what patient-matched medical device means. You made mention of a kit when you were taking us through some of those examples. What I would like to state, and it should be noted, that if something is in a kit and that kit is listed on the ARTG, then there's no further regulatory burden on a healthcare worker who's manufacturing out of that kit. So, Tanya, can you please provide a case study to better understand patient-matched medical devices?
Yes, so an example of a patient-matched medical device is silicone bolus, which is commonly used in radiation therapy. So the bolus is manufactured at the point of care using two liquids that are mixed together and then poured to form a bolus of a particular size or thickness. And then this resultant sheet can be used in different ways. So just going back to those two liquids, these two components supplied to make the bolus, they don't meet the definition of a medical device and are likely to be a starting kit. But the bolus made from the silicone will meet the definition of a medical device, thereby making the health practitioner both a manufacturer and the sponsor of the medical device. Also, a bolus could be 3D printed at the point of care, and both a silicone bolus and 3D printed bolus are likely to be classified Class 1, non-sterile, non-measuring, and must be included in the ARTG by the sponsor before they can be supplied.
Thanks for that explanation, Tanya. So as we outlined earlier, a custom-made medical device that now meets the definition of a patient-matched medical device has to be notified to the TGA before the 1st of November this year. Now, I saw a question pop up regarding that transition period, and we'll provide a more detailed response to that question after the webinar. So what I'd like to do now is moving on to TGA notifications. So Tanya, can you take us through the process for notifications to the TGA, please?
Yes, so the first step in the process is for your organisation to obtain a client identification number. And this is also called a client ID. And they'll also need to set up a TGA business service account, which is called a TBS account. And just to note that each local health district and specialty network is its own separate legal entity. So should have established a business account with the TGA. And the responsibility of the registered legal entity is to ensure compliance with the TGA regulations. And at this stage, the CEC Medical Device Governance Program is working to raise system and healthcare staff awareness of the point-of-care manufacturer responsibilities. And here it's important to note that the TGA's work on the point-of-care manufacturing reform is ongoing. So please be aware that there is the potential for changes to the specific information that the TGA requires. And again, please notify the TGA for each kind of medical device, which means devices that have the same manufacturer, sponsor, GMD code, and the same device class. And in case your organisation does not have a client ID or a TBS account, don't worry. Refer to the TGA link in the chat box, and this provides a detailed guide on the TGA business services and how to get started with the TGA. So once a client ID and the TBS account has been set up, the next step is to access the notification form. And you can do this by two different ways. The first one is directly via the PMR compliance dashboard, which we've just posted on the chat. And once you're in the dashboard, click on the custom-made medical device notifications. Then the second way to go about this is to log in via the TBS portal sign-in, and that's on the TGA website. And again, we've just posted the link in the chat. Once you sign in, look for the regulatory compliance heading, and then under that heading is medical device post-market compliance, and click on this. And I know that sounds a bit odd, but that's where the TGA has placed the notification form. So then this will take you to the custom-made device notifications dashboard. So from the dashboard, click on a new custom-made medical device notification. Then you'll be asked to provide your manufacturing details, including name and address, the GMDN code for the device or devices, the classification of the device, and a description of the device. So this sums up the process of how to register for a TBS account and how to notify the TGA about personalised medical devices manufactured at the point of care.
Thank you for that, Tanya. That's a lot of information. There is an important note here. So you, as an individual, you do not need to register with the TGA. So each local health district, each specialty health network is considered its own legal entity within New South Wales Health. So it's at this level that the TGA business registration has to occur. So to wrap up, I think the key takeaway message here is that the purpose of the TGA's PMD, personalised medical device reforms, as they apply to New South Wales Health and of course every other state health agency across Australia, is to provide a solid base to strengthen safer systems of care for patients who do need or do have a personalised medical device. The overall goal is to ensure that the refinements to the PMDs are well understood, and that our clinicians can easily apply the PMD reforms and the regulations under those reforms easily to your relevant settings. For patients and consumers, this is about ensuring that they receive and that they understand the information on their personalised medical device, and that they appreciate and understand ways to report any issues or concerns with that personalised medical device should there be an issue or concern. I'd like to reiterate that the content in this webinar has been rather technical, and we've not been able to cover any, or rather every aspect of the PMD regulations and reforms by any means. So some of you may have residual questions. The team's here to answer any of those questions, and we will do so to the best of our ability. And you're certainly also welcome to refer your questions to directly to the TGA if you wish. Before we end, I'd like to invite you once again to visit our website. The link has just been posted there, QR code rather, has just been posted there on the screen. And once again, you'll notice a yellow subscribe button on the top right-hand corner, and you can enter your details under that button, and we will keep you informed with updates to this program and as well as future webinar updates. Please keep your eyes open and check out our page regularly, because we're regularly applying updates to the site with new content.